Early start this morning. So there's something I'm going to show you is while it's still dark, and it's a good technique for actually locating gold. Now, I have talked to a few people that I've taken out and explained to them about it, but now that it's dark, I can actually really show you well how this technique works. And we need one thing for you to understand this. And that's a torch. So I'll take you down the creek, and using that torch, I'll show you a gold finding technique that you'll be able to use in your mind when you're on any sort of creek or river. All right, we'll head down the creek and I'll show you. Right, so we're down on the creek. I know a lot of you are starting to wonder how this actually works. How does a torch tell you where you're going to be able to find gold in a creek? It's really quite simple. And once it's explained to you, you'll go, it makes perfect sense. So I've just walked down. There's a few rocks and things here on the creek. So what I'm going to do is I'll just show you where you're going to find gold, or the most likely spot you're going to find gold using a torch. So we'll turn this on. Now this is looking downstream. Now wherever I point that torch, anywhere that casts a shadow behind an object is a low pressure point. So it's very hard to see because it's dark. There's rocks, and if there's a shadow behind a rock, it's a low pressure point. And we've got a couple of rocks here, and there's shadows being cast behind it. So if we actually walk down, just looking at these couple of rocks here, when you're looking from upstream, you can't see in behind that rock. There's a shadow cast there. And there's a nice little crevice there. Once again, you can't see behind this rock. All in behind here, there's a shadow cast. And you can see by the amount of material that's built up there that it's a low pressure point. Somebody's probably had a dig there. It looks like someone's dug there. So, that rock over there, it's very hard to see. That one there. So if you're looking downstream and you're pointing a torch down and you can't see behind it because there's a shadow there, it's a low pressure point. Now, you can also increase your chances of locating that gold when you understand the high and low pressure areas as a creek's flowing. So if you've got a dead straight line, the very guts of it is going to be the most pressure. On either side, you're going to have low pressure points. That's why you've got a build up of gravel on either side of your creek or your river. That's just a handy little tip. So when you're walking around in the daytime, always look downstream and go, right, what can I not see behind? So if you can't see behind a tree stump or a rock or a mound of dirt or something like that, and then picture that when it's in flood, you know that the water's racing down, and if it can't get directly behind it, it's a low pressure point. All right, well, the sky is starting to lighten up, so I've probably got half an hour before it's going to be light enough for me to start panning. I wasn't sure how much water was going to be in the creek because we haven't had much rain here lately. But it's quite good because the creek's low, so I'll be able to work some of these crevices that are normally deep underwater. All right, well, I'll head back up to the vehicle, get my stuff ready, and I'll come back down onto the creek. There's probably enough flow here for me to set up the little river sluice, and I'll probably screen some material off into a bucket and just feed the sluice today. I'll go and get the tools and we'll get into it. Well, it's just after midday and I've just been working this area that I've been previously working. I've just moved around to the other side of this little boulder and piles of rock and just started digging in there. And I got a few colours straight away. So I've been feeding this sluice since I set it up. I walked upstream from where I showed you this morning with the torch and just did a few crevices and got some small gold, nothing real big, and I thought I'll come back down and keep working the area where I've been getting gold. Now, I was feeding the little river sluice and I actually bumped it. There was quite a good showing of gold at the head of it, but I've bumped it and it's all started to drop down. So I'm going to pick it up, clean it out in the bucket and set it up again. So I'll try and show you the gold that you can see now. And then once I've cleaned it up and panned it, I'll show you what come out of it for a few hours of digging. Now there's one flake that's dropped down there, a biggish one. Hopefully you can see there's quite a bit of fine gold up in the head of it. And I'll say what happened is I sat the bucket down to feed it and I bumped that rock and knocked it sideways and a fair bit of it travelled. So I'm going to clean it out. And I'll set it up again and I'll just keep working around the other side of these large rocks and see what comes out. I'm averaging, I've just did a few test pans there, I'm averaging about 16, 17 colours a pan, and I'm only digging down probably 100, 150 mil. Once you get down, there's a real reddy orange clay layer. Once you get down to that, the gold stops. So it's just been in previous floods that this gold's been deposited. Alright, well I'll pick this up, put it in the bucket, clean it out, and I'll show you what comes out. So that's half a day. That was the morning of just feeding that little sluice. Now, I've also got gold in the sniffer bottle, of course, because so I've been test panning as I've been going and just sniffing it up. So I'll set the sluice up again, get it positioned right, and hopefully I won't knock it again. And I'll continue digging in around these largish rocks where I'm getting, you know, that 15, 16 colours a pan, and just see what I get for the day. So picking these areas in the gravel bars, there is a knack to it. Now, I have explained that before, but I say test panning and knowing when you're actually looking, I'm looking upstream now, but when you're actually looking downstream and looking how those bends move and looking where the rocks, the larger rocks and your smaller rocks deposited, gives you that clue. It gives you a fair idea of where you're going to find that gold. Now those that know and watch my videos will know that I actually panned that concentrate out of that little pan, out of the back of the pan. I didn't pan it out over the riffles. I know everyone's going to not everyone's going to agree, but it is easier to pan it out the back once you've got the technique mastered, because you are not trying to push heavy ironstone over the riffles, and you try and push that, you'll end up pushing the fine gold out. there is a trick to it. And I say, if you watch my previous videos, I've actually put up a video there once before showing you how to pan it out the back of the pan. Alright, it's quite warm. Set this up. I'm going to have a drink. I actually might slip back up to the vehicle and grab something to eat. Then I'll come back and do some digging for the afternoon, and we'll see what we get. I'm sure there's a few of you now starting to wonder, if he panned it off the back of the pan, did he lose any? That's why I panned it into the bucket. So the bulk of the concentrate coming out when I actually did the cleanup. So I just took the bucket, tipped it back in the pan, and just repanned it. And I'll show you just how much gold I lost by panning it out the back. Not a skerrick. I say, there is a technique, and what I'll do is I'll actually post at the end of the video, I'll put a link up to the video where I show you how to pan out of the back. Very, very easy once you've got the technique down pat, and it just makes getting that concentrate out of your pan a lot easier than trying to push it over the riffles. Alright, well, I'll set the sluice up and start digging again. Pull the sluice, pan it into the bucket, and there is the result for the afternoon of sluicing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go back to panning till the sun sets over the hills. And just see what else I can pan up out of that area there, just with the gravels. So not as much as this morning. I end up running 2 half buckets of screen gravel through the sluice, and that was the result. So kept test panning as I was going, and the colours were getting less and less. So where all that gold was concentrated, I actually must have cleaned it out, and it was just starting to tail off, and the gold was getting less and less. So that's all I'll do now, is I'll just keep having a dig and just keep washing it off with the pan till the sun drops down over the hill, which is probably going to be about another hour or so, and then I'll pack my gear up and head back to the vehicle, and I'll tip it out into the gold pan and show you what I've got for the day. Alright, now I've cleaned that up, I'm going to sniff it up. Got a fair sort of amount in there now. Oh, I don't know, it might be a gram, might be a bit better than a gram. But anyway, it's been fun. It's good to be back out chasing the yellow again. Alright. Sniff him up, wash a few more pans, and we see what we get. We're back at the vehicle. So that was a good day. Quite enjoyed that. It's been a long time since I've spent a full day out digging. Alright, I'll show you what we got. So that was the grand total for the day. Not bad going. Well, whew, sweat's dripping off me. Alright guys, well, that's it for another one. Hope you're finding lots of yellow wherever you are. Get out there and get into it. And until the next video, have a good one, and I'll see you later.